Well, what is it? Good day now? Good morning, Mike Griffith. I'm Louis Amestoy, the host of the Bako Motorsports Power Hour. I'm with the Bakersfield Californian, and over there in the corner is Mike Griffith.
Hiding as usual.
Mike, before we get started, I just want to do a little product placement. Don't forget to have a nice cold Coca-Cola.
Yeah, or if you prefer, Pepsi.
Either way, you can get a sponsorship in the show, and we'll drink it on air. Crown Royal, he said that over here.
I think there's like FCC rules or something.
There is no FCC rules. This is we could
do
smoke,
whatever.
We could smoke and drink. We can make this like the old Johnny Carson show.
Crown Royal, a little vodka, we're set.
You name it, we'll put it on there. Also joining us on our first segment panel today, Butch Hedrick, who has the coolest trophy in motorsports, the Butchie, which I just love. Derek Thorne does not have one of these, but if he was racing, just straight track stuff, he probably would win one of these.
We need to change it up, I think.
I think we need to change it up. And then we have Southwest Tour SRL points leader, Derek Thorne, who had a big weekend in Irwindale.
Champion as well. How you doing?
Right, yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to have you here. We have a very busy show for you guys ahead. There's a lot of local racing coming up this weekend. We've got ANRA, which Butch is in charge of. They will be running out at Bakersfield or at Famoso on starting Friday.
We're parking on Friday and on Saturday and Sunday.
And they're having a huge barbecue too, which is really cool.
The Champions Barbecue on Saturday night.
Yep. And Derek will be racing on Saturday night in the DC's 100, so that's a pretty exciting time for you guys, right?
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
All right.
The team's been working hard, and I think we'll hopefully have a pretty good piece.
And the late models return to Bakersfield Speedway. We'll have Scott Schweitzer to talk about that. Brett Bennett's supposed to call in, I think. That's the plan. He won modifieds last week.
So a busy weekend. If you can't find something to do at the racetrack this weekend, you're not a race fan.
Right.
I mean, you've got your choice.
Absolutely. All right, this show is brought to you by the Bakersfield Californian. As we've noticed, we've been covering a race since the beginning. Griffith's been almost all of that, so in his career. Show number 8, and you can follow us on Facebook and follow us also on Twitter and Instagram at Bako Motorsports. Slowly but surely, we're building those up a little bit here. And later in the show, we will announce our driver of the week for the fans. And the voting has been
the weekly ballot stuffing.
The weekly ballot stuffing, an exercise in the Chicago election, is ongoing right now. But we've had over 1,000 people vote this week in this contest.
And that's what's encouraging because it was 600, 700 last week.
600 last week.
Different people. So
no, we banned it last week because of all the idiocy that happened. But 2 weeks ago it was 600 people.
Yeah, so we got over 1,000 different people voting. So that shows there's some interest.
There's some interest in this community, and there's a lot of pride in it. In fact, it was actually the most viewed story this week on our website, beating out Lawrence Phillips allegedly killing his cellmate in Kern Valley State Prison, and the tickling of the feet.
The cop tickling the corpse's feet.
Yeah. So we have our
welcome to Bakersfield.
We have our priorities straight here: motorsports and cop stuff. Okay. All right. Let's get right to our next thing. Mike, did you watch this race?
Yes. That was Saturday night.
I tell you what, I infuriated Steve Hughes.
I watched bits and pieces. I was with some family somewhere else.
I infuriated Steve Hughes on Saturday night when I told him that Harvick had finished second in this race. So Jimmy,
why? Oh, because Steve likes to live in. He's a dinosaur. He thinks everybody's got their head in the sand, and he wants to record stuff and not announce stuff. You know, if there was a national election and somebody won, but he didn't know, he doesn't want to know till he's viewed the ballots or something. So yeah, so you can irritate Steve, and that's part of it.
He's coming around the corner, I think, right now.
You know what? Get over it.
So Harvick, though, was in contention for this race. And did you get a chance to see this at all, Derek? You were racing yourself, right?
Saw the highlights, yeah.
What do you think of what happened in Texas?
Man, I think it's good to see Jimmy Johnson and Knaus. You know, they were in the position of Harvick here, year and a half, 2 years ago, and they've kind of, I wouldn't say been in a slump, but they haven't had the success or the dominance that they used to have. And I think Harvick's been definitely up on their game, the whole organization at Stewart-Haas, and I guess it's kind of, I never thought I'd say it's refreshing to see Jimmy Johnson win again. I guess he wouldn't say he knocked Harvick off the pedestal, but I think it's going to gear up to make, for that much more exciting races in the future.
Harvick finished the second in Texas, but he's still there. I mean, his season's incredible.
He hasn't gone nowhere. Those guys, I don't know what they're doing at Stewart-Haas. I'm sure the doors are locked tight and they're not letting those secrets out, but they're doing something right.
Yeah, without a doubt. They've got a little bit of an edge, and as they said, they've somebody's going to find out what they're doing, and everybody's going to catch up, and then
Oh yeah.
we'll see what's going on. And I imagine the catch up will happen by summer.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
No doubt. Everything always makes full circle. It seems like in racing.
Absolutely. Casey Mears ended up finishing 20th at Texas, 15th in the Sprint Cup standings. Had some issues, I guess, late in the race, and was looking for some help on a caution, didn't get it, and couldn't move up. But he's still hanging in there, 15th in the Sprint Cup standings. He is in danger of falling out. Griff, what do you think? The season holds for him?
Yeah, he's, as you said when I talked to him before the season, the big tracks were going to be the question. Not so much for him that he thought he'd do better. So. Yeah, I think 15th, if he can stay around 15th in points, that'd be pretty good for that team. As I said, I think 15th to 20th is where that team's going to fall in points. They could finish in top 20 in points for a single-car team, underfunded. That's not a bad deal. We'll see what happens at Bristol.
Yeah.
This weekend should be fun.
Speaking of Bristol, coming up this weekend is the Food City 500 at Bristol, and then they go to Richmond the week after that. And, Griff, you have not been to Bristol, though.
I've not been to Bristol. Bristol's my daughter's been to Bristol.
But you have not been there. That's one of the few tracks you haven't been to, right?
No, there's a lot of tracks I haven't been to. I've been to most of the West Coast tracks. We could have a long list of tracks I have not been to.
What do you guys think, Derek? What do you think makes Bristol so special for a lot of these drivers? I mean,
I think there's a short list of tracks on the NASCAR schedule that kind of remind, I think, most of these drivers of what short track racing used to be. Mm-hmm. You go to your Texases and Michigans, everything's bigger, better, big glamorous type racing, and you go to these tracks and it's, tempers flare.
Yeah.
It's going back to kind of what their roots used to be, kind of where they started as a driver. And, I think it allows them to kind of go back and have some fun. At the same time, fenders are flying, tempers are flaring, Tony Stewart's throwing helmets, and people are getting pissed off.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Bristol, the next couple slides here, Chris, and just go through these things. And so Bristol will be the highlight. This is the one race a lot of people look forward to. The stadium there is just magnificent. Harvick's had some troubles there. This was last year, a little pit fire. And a couple of years ago, he had a crash, was involved in a big crash. So, this is another one that I think anything goes in this race, right? Right, Griff?
Anything goes. And you see a crash like this, they're running so close at Bristol. When one car spins, there's generally going to be several cars involved in it. If you have somebody spin and they all miss it, that's lucky because you're going to have 43 cars on a half mile, and it's a mess.
All right, we'll keep pressing on here. And Ryan Reed finished actually, that's not right. He finished 15th at Texas. And let's go to the next slide. And this is how he's been since he won at Daytona. He's been kind of consistent.
And I think this shows the Roush Fenway big track difficulties. He's not that far off from his teammates. I think Buescher had a top 10 finish, but I think his other teammates were right around that spot. I mean, those Fords on that team are running pretty close to one another on the big track. So I think it's more of they quite haven't got the package figured out on the mile-and-a-half tracks.
Think he'll figure it out by the end of the season? Think things will change for him?
I think it's more of not necessarily just Ryan, but it's an entire team or an organization, so to speak. It's tough for someone to jump in and say, hey, I'm going to be better. And I'm sure they'd love to. I think they'll continue to get better, and I think Ryan is a driver. The more experience you get, the better you get. The better you get, the better feedback you give. The better feedback you give, the better the team can be. The better team can be, the better the organization can be. Relate well with your teammates and stuff. So I think in time, definitely.
All right. Well, very good. Let's go right now to our next thing, and this is 4 things that Mike has to react. Now we're gonna switch it up because we got Butch Hedrick here and we got Derek Thorne here, so they're gonna have a couple of comments on these things.
Maybe they can react too.
All right, let's go to our next slide. This guy, John Force, by the way, with Ron Cap's mom. Let's go. We'll ask you this first, Griff, and then we'll ask Butch this question because Force won at NHRA. The event in Las Vegas this last weekend in top. I think
that man's driven. That man was hungry when he first started his career. He was blowing crap up left and right. He was on fire all the time. Couldn't get down the racetrack. He got a taste of winning once he got past all that. Stayed with it. I think he's hungry. He's 60 years old. He's still hungry. He's still driven.
What do you think, Butch?
Yeah, he's been. Of course, he started on a shoestring, and he's worked his way up to where he is right now. And he's going to be a force to contend with the rest of the year, I think.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Our next slide, and this is Stacey Evans, one of 3 young ladies who won local races last week. We had Tina Bell won at Bakersfield Speedway, Stacy winning at Kern County Raceway Park, and then Kiersey Young winning in the little guys, the mini dwarfs out of Bakersfield Speedway. But we see it all the time. And I'm going to ask Butch this question first. You mentioned earlier, women have come a long ways in this sport, and we're starting to see a real change in the sport.
Well, we've probably got 15 young ladies that have come out and really grown with the series, and you get out there and watch them, and we've got some very attractive young ladies, and they're real hungry, and they're good drivers.
All right. Derek, do you race against women, or what have you seen from the rise of female racers?
I should add to that list, there's a female by the name of Nicole Behar who actually finished second at the Irwindale race this weekend down there in Irwindale, and she did absolutely great. She started mid-pack and worked her way up, and it's refreshing to see. And you see Danica Patrick every week, and I think she's been over-publicized, but it's great to see these. I think a lot of the girls look up to her and can see where you can eventually get in the sport, so it's good to see.
Right.
Yeah, that Nicole Behar ran well in the West race here. She had to start at the back of the pack because of some broken part or something on the car, and was in the top 10 and got, she says taken out, but she got involved in a thing late in the race. But she had worked her way up at Kern County Raceway Park, and so without a doubt, there's a lot more opportunities now. We see in the mini dwarfs. More people are getting their daughters involved in racing at an early age, so it can only mean good things down the road.
Right.
Well,
all right.
That's a lot like the junior drag show. We got a lot of the young ladies are coming out, starting young, 6, 7 years old, and by the time they age out, they're quality drivers and they're ready for a good ride.
All right, here we go. What do you think of this sign? Go to the sign.
I think that's a sign that should be at all racetracks. What do you think? I think promoters should carry it around in wallet cards.
All right, let's go to the next one. Number four. Griff, you've thought of this. Go to the next slide here. And best thing about the Long Beach Grand Prix.
If you're single, women. That is. I went to attended. Here's my saying: you will see, and not to be sexist, you will see more good-looking women / people in a weekend at the Long Beach Grand Prix than you will in a month at Indianapolis for the 500.
Wow.
And I have spent a lot of time at both racetracks.
Both racetracks.
So that comes from experience. But I think there's just an excitement about the Long Beach Grand Prix. It's a place where all the pretty people come out. It's kind of that SoCal celebrity thing. I've been to parties on yachts back in the good old days when PPG was covering stuff, and there's lots of money in the sport. But it's still got that Southern California, Hollywood, LA type of vibe around it. So it's just a fun event. They race through the streets. You can't see much if you're there, but to see those cars screaming down Ocean Boulevard at full throttle is quite a sight.
Have you guys ever had a chance to see it? Either one of you?
No, I've always wanted to go, but I've never been there.
There you go.
Sounds like it needs to be a little bit higher on my list.
That sounds like it. All right, well, we are done with this segment. By the way, we're going to talk a little more with Derek Thorne after the break. He had a win at Irwindale. And a lot going on with that track. Maybe touch on that a little bit about the future of Southern California racing. And Butch will join us in the last two segments here to talk more about the Andrews season opener. Coming up next, Kern County Raceway Park. We'll talk about what they've got going on. And after that, Bakersfield Speedway. Stay with us here on Bako Motorsports Power Hour, brought to you by the Bakersfield California.